Inland Wetlands Agency, calling the regular meeting for November 19th, 2025 to order. Lisa, please call the roll with Steve Munson, Julie Valvo, Nick Ritchie, excused, please.
Daniel Bedecker.
Here.
Ranjit Bahav.
Yeah.
Brian Black.
Here.
Jim Connors. Matthew Connors.
Here.
Buddy Field.
Here.
Ray Gradwell.
Here.
Brendan Magnan.
Here, thank you, Lisa. Commissioners, Field and Gradwell, can you please serve as voting alternates this evening?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, just as a general reminder as we get started, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the City of Milford website. It's also being broadcast on YouTube as we speak, and in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Lamont's executive orders. As I just said, it's going to be recorded and placed on the City of Milford website. During this meeting, we are here to focus on the watercourses, wetlands, brooks, rivers, floodings, and wetland habitat. Zoning issues are not under our purview. If I could ask everyone to unmute yourselves and stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, that'd be great. If Mary Rose could show the flag. I see the flag. Okay. I pledge allegiance
To
to the
flag
flag,
the
United
States of America,
to the
to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
liberty,
and
justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Everyone can go on mute until recognized by the chair. At this time, do we have anybody from the public wishing to address the agency on topics not otherwise on the agenda? Do we have anyone wishing to address the agency on topics not otherwise on the agenda? Seeing none, moving on to old business. That is IW 250054. Mayor Rose, could you please introduce this matter?
Sure. 1 second. Hope that doesn't show there, and it will. Alrighty. This is item D1. It's IW 250054, 470 to 488 Wheelers Farms Road. It's a proposal by Wheelers Farms Developers LLC for redevelopment for a mixed-use community with construction, grading, and mitigation work in and within 150 feet of a wetland and watercourse in the Wepwag River watershed. The city engineer and I met with the applicant on Monday and reviewed the plans. They've got some minor updating to do to clarify a few things for us. They will get that to the city engineer by next Wednesday. The city engineer will get the review to us by our meeting, which is 2 weeks from today on December 3rd. Wheelers Farms LLC is represented this evening by Patrick O'Leary from Continental Properties, Jack Hamill, I believe, Darren Overton, and Megan. Here's Jim Connors, Fogarty, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. Thanks for the orientation, Mary Rose. I'm going to turn it over to the applicant team. Please introduce yourself as you present, and please limit your comments to the jurisdiction of the Inland Wetlands Agency in the interest of proceeding with the most efficiency. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, and staff. My name is Patrick O'Leary. I am a PE. I'm Vice President of Development and Acquisitions for Continental Properties, here tonight as applicant on behalf of Wheelers Farm Developers LLC and the owners, Wheeler Farm Partner LLC and Greenview Equity. The site we're discussing tonight, if I may pause, Darren, can you bring up the graphics, share the graphics, please?
Everyone see that?
Yes, thank you, Darren. The subject site this evening is also known as Crown Corporate Plaza, generally located at the intersection of the Merritt Parkway, the Milford Connector, and Wheeler's Farm Road, where the public access is. It's 47 acre site, constructed throughout the 80s, during the 80s timeframe. It has 4 office buildings that you can see here, 1 parking garage, and comprises approximately 47 acres. The site itself, having been used since the 80s, and like many other office areas in the country, is a little tired and underutilized. The owners of the site determined that it was time for redevelopment. And approximately 15 months ago, in August 2024, received master plan approval from the city to develop a mixed-use project, redevelop a mixed-use project on the site. The mixed-use project will consist of renovated office space. They're keeping 2 of the office buildings, tearing down the remaining buildings, and multifamily residential development, age-targeted residential development will occur here, along with a restaurant and a host of amenities and parks throughout the project. Upon receiving approval for this project, the owners formulated and developed a team between Wheeler's Farm Partners, LLC, and Wheeler Farm Development, LLC, to begin the planning process, development of plans to reflect the improvements associated with the master plan. There are wetlands on the site. In the southeast corner, you can see the dark outlines there. We are not going to have any direct impact on those wetlands. We will be performing work within the regulated area. And you can see actually part of the building as well within the regulated area, the existing building there. We've worked throughout the design and planning of this project to minimize any impacts on the wetlands. And in fact, we hope you'll find we're actually making numerous improvements in and around the area itself. As noted by Mary Rose, we met on Monday with Mary Rose and the city engineer to review the draft comments. We have made our way through all the draft comments, both from Wetlands and the city engineer. And we do not believe, as we address these comments and develop the response to comments, that they will have any significant impact on the plans themselves. Many of the notes are ministerial in nature, labeling, material changes that need to be made, pipe sizes, things of that nature. But there are no comments that we've seen or have knowledge of that would increase any of the impact areas associated with this or ultimately cause any direct impacts to the wetlands itself. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, what I would like to do is turn it over to Mr. Darren Overton of SLR, who will provide a more detailed description of the existing conditions and the proposed development. And then Darren will turn it over to Ms. Megan Fogarty, who will provide a detailed description of the wetlands, the regulated areas, and any impacts and mitigation that is associated with it. With that, Mr. Chairman, if you're pleased, I'll turn it over to Darren.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. O'Leary, for your opening remarks. That's very helpful. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Mr. Overton. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Patrick, for that overview. My name is Darren Overton. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I've served as the project manager, working very closely with Patrick and the owners on designing the development that you see before you for the project. So I'll go over some of the details of the project and try to keep a focus on things relevant to the Wetlands Commission. But the majority of that is really going to be a part of Megan's presentation. So I'll try to get through mine quickly and turn it over to Megan. Of note of existing conditions, Patrick had mentioned the existing pond on site. There's associated wetland corridor with that on the east side that drains to the south. The dashed blue line on here, it designates kind of a ridge that runs through the site. So the site is divided by a watershed line that separates the Housatonic River watershed to the west from the Weppawag River watershed to the east. The significance of that, you're probably all aware of, is that in the Weppawag River watershed, there's a larger upland review area that's recognized of 150 feet. So that's shown by the dashed green line on here. One thing that came up in our discussion with the town engineer and Mary Rose this week was the drainage from the majority of this development, which goes to the west to the Housatonic River, all comes together there's 4 riprap line channels that then exit the site into a cross culvert that runs under the Merritt Parkway. There was a concern as to whether those riprap channels could be intermittent watercourses. Our wetland biologists and soil scientists have been out on the site investigating and flagging the wetlands, did look at those areas and have confirmed that they do not meet the standards to be defined as a regulated intermittent watercourse. And we will respond accordingly when we respond to some of the comments that we've received so far. So High Point, everything drains either east or west to these different 2 watersheds along this ridge. The actual high point of the site is over kind of in this northern corner of the property. Just for relationship wise, as far as elevations, that's an elevation of 225 feet. And then the low point of the site is located over where the drainage leaves into that cross culvert under the parkway. And that's at an elevation of 153. So there is some grade change across the site, not dramatic. And you can see the prior development area of the site with the office buildings, parking garage, and then we have an existing access drive that comes in off of Wheeler Farm Road. We reviewed this as part of our due diligence. There is no FEMA floodplain on the property. And that's pretty much all I have for existing additions. You can see the various access drives and parking aisles associated with the previous development of the site as a corporate office park. So the next sheet I have is a proposed development rendering of the site, which shows the proposed changes to the development. It's a redevelopment of the office park into a mixed use with multifamily, residential, and age-targeted uses. So we have a building here which replaces one of the office buildings. Actually, there's 2 office buildings here that are tied together by a corridor that have parking that utilizes the existing parking garage, which is proposed to remain. So this is the 150 age-targeted building that's proposed to replace those 2 office buildings that will be removed as part of the project. And then over on the western side of the site, we have the proposed multifamily residential housing. And there's really kind of 2 quads to that development. So I'll zoom in a little bit here. We have 2 proposed L-shaped buildings that are 63 unit buildings. We have another 62 unit building. And then there's a clubhouse that sort of closes in the quad. And then on the interior part of that quad, there's walkways. You can see the proposed pool and amenity spaces behind the clubhouse. The second quad to the south has 4 multifamily buildings. They're all 44 unit buildings. And then there's kind of a smaller gathering space in the middle here with connected walkways to provide pedestrian access throughout both the multifamily and also connections throughout the site to the office buildings as well as the age-targeted building. Each of these has adjacent parking spaces that provide convenience for access for the new residents, as well as the use of the existing office buildings. As part of the 2 office buildings to remain over here in the northern part of the site, the northern parking field is remaining the same, essentially unchanged. We are providing some improvements to the access to provide vehicular access and drop off at the front door and some enhanced landscape treatments for the entrance to those 2 buildings. The age-targeted building also has an amenity space on the back side of it. The amenity space also has a pool and several other outdoor eating and amenity spaces, and it overlooks the existing pond on the site, which has a trail system around it that exists, and we're going to enhance part of that as part of this project. There's also a central green, this item 8 here in the middle, kind of a public space that kind of ties all the uses together. There's also pedestrian connectivity through these areas with crosswalks to basically connect all the uses. There are a few dog parks that are proposed for the new residential uses. There's one over here, 11, another one here, and then another one here. And those are connected by a nature trail that loops around the multifamily. It comes through the south side of the site and also connects in with the age-targeted building. And then there's pedestrian connections across the roadway network to the office buildings that are proposed to remain. So we have parking distributed around the site. As part of our work, we did a shared parking study. We looked at the various peaks for the different uses, and we sought to not overpark this. Because the office building and the residential have different peaks, we sought to optimize the parking to provide the right amount of parking, not over or under park it. And we believe what we've provided at 1,409 parking spaces with 126 potentially in deferred areas that we're not building at this point, we believe we've adequately provided parking and distributed it well throughout the site for each of the uses. I'll just go over a couple more, really kind of engineering aspects of the plan, stormwater management and the S&E plan. And then I'll turn this over to Megan. For stormwater management, we've done a full hydrologic analysis of the site. We've looked at both watersheds. We've looked at trying to maintain the water where it goes now in those two watersheds. We've also looked at the city and the state standards for stormwater management and water quality as part of the design. We have a pipe and catch basin drainage system throughout the western watershed that collects the surface runoff and brings it to a new detention basin that's proposed over here, which is item 18. Virtually all of this site slopes now to those riprap drainage swales that exist and lead to that cross culvert under the Wilbur Cross Parkway. So this stormwater basin serves to provide detention. We have a small increase in impervious as proposed as part of the project. And it also serves to meet the deep water quality manual requirements for water quality volume for the overall development. So the last part of that is the treatment train. So we have catch basins with sumps. And one thing that the town engineer noted in his review that we need to provide hoods on the beginning of the first catch basins that come into the system. So we're going to be adding hoods to a majority of the catch basins, but not along the ones that are part of the trunk line. We have a hydrodynamic separator located at the inlet into the stormwater management basin. As I mentioned, we provided the deep water quality volume, 50% for the total redevelopment. So that includes water treatment for not only the proposed impervious, but also for some of the existing impervious on site. And then we have the pipe discharge to the riprap drainage swales following the drainage patterns that exist on site. In the eastern watershed, we have no stormwater management improvements. The improvements that we're making, there's kind of a balance of impervious area there. There's no increase in runoff in that watershed, so there's no additional stormwater management that we're adding to the project. We're maintaining the drainage patterns of that watershed and the stormwater management system that exists there. Last item I want to mention is we do have a full design for a sediment and erosion control plan. It's going to control various types of all the runoff from the various development areas of the site. It will include perimeter controls, inlet controls. We also have a proposed berm and swale system to lead surface runoff during construction to 3 temporary sediment traps. And then the actual stormwater basin here is proposed to be used as a sediment basin during construction. And then where we have some of the steeper slopes on site, we have erosion control blankets that are proposed to control and limit erosion on those slopes as they are established. So next sheet we have is a blow up of the age targeted area. And the reason we're focusing on this area is that's the area where the wetland corridor exists in the pond. So this just shows some of the improvements. We have the amenity space that's proposed. There is an existing walking trail around it that we're enhancing. We have connections from that amenity space behind the age targeted. And then here on the south side, number 7, you see the nature trail connection coming in through the wooded area and connecting into the walking path loop that's around the pond and amenity space behind the age targeted building. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Megan so she can talk in more detail about the proposed improvements for the pond area and also go over the wetland impacts for the project, which just want to mention that we don't have any direct wetland impacts, but there obviously, as you can see here from the 100-foot upland review area line, there are prior impacts within that 150-foot area. And then we also have some proposed improvements that are within that area. So we do have regulated activities within that upland review area. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Megan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Overton. Over to you, Ms. Fogarty.
Thank you, and thank you, Darren. Good evening. My name is Megan Fogarty. I'm a wetland professional and soil scientist in training with SLR, filling in tonight for Matt Sanford, professional wetland scientist and registered soil scientist, also with SLR. Matt and I visited the site on September 12th, 2024 to delineate wetlands and watercourses present across the site in accordance with all local, state, and federal regulations. And we've submitted a soil scientist report as well as an impact assessment based on those findings. In summary, the wetlands, as we're discussing, are limited to the southeastern portion of the property where they occupy about 1.8 acres. And that includes both a palustrin forested red maple swamp as well as a stormwater detention feature that you can see here encircled in the pathway. And based on the records that we were able to obtain, this was a constructed feature that was created within uplands along with the original development sometime in the 80s. It has been left unmaintained for quite some time. And the evidence of that includes invasive vegetation both in and around the pond, as well as trash and debris noted throughout and around these features. The stormwater features and the red maple swamp are hydrologically connected below a series of through a series of PVC pipes below the trail, which we'll also note is paved and pretty deteriorated. Some tripping hazards and overall lack of maintenance since it was constructed. Nonetheless, the stormwater basin, as in our report we discussed, does contribute recognized functions and values of a wetland. And as such, it was treated as one with the upland review area and overall design, avoidance of impacts and enhancements, as I'll discuss in a little bit. Darren already clarified this, but I just wanted to emphasize that we will be providing more information in the response to comments regarding the stormwater swales. Based on our investigation and the regulatory definitions, none of those 4 stormwater swales in the northwest portion of the property meet any regulatory definitions to be classified as wetlands or watercourses. So we are focusing just on the southeastern portion. Shifting now to the proposed activities and any potential impacts. We again want to emphasize that no direct wetland impacts are proposed. The regulated activities within the 150-foot upland review area comprise a little over 76,000 square feet. And that includes portions of the age-restricted building, as we see here, permeable parking, as well as grading and landscaping and the restoration activities around the detention pond itself. The deteriorating paved pathway around the pond will be removed and replaced with stabilized pea gravel, which is a more permeable alternative that will serve to enhance infiltration around the pond. And we will also be removing invasive vegetation in and around the pond. As you can see in orange there, there's autumn olive, some pretty tall, dense stands of it around the periphery, as well as Phragmites australis inside the pond in that one polygon, sort of to the northeast there. And in their place, we will be planting a variety of native wetland plugs and shrubs around the pond to create a more natural littoral shelf. In its existing conditions, the pond is primarily mowed lawn right up until the edge of water, limiting the functions and values the pond can provide. So we're looking to enhance that there and replace and promote with native vegetation any areas that the invasives will be removed. As you can see in this graphic as well, there's a dashed red line where the age-restricted building and amenity space is proposed, and that represents the limits of the existing hardscape that encroaches within the 150-foot URA. And so as you can see, we tried to keep the hardscape of the design limited to that general footprint, and we're fairly successful. Everything beyond that, we use strategies such as the permeable paved parking spots, as well as there's a pretty heavily planted hillside upland area with a lot of native and wildlife food source producing shrubs, as well as a native seed mix in that area. And the trail, apart from the area that's encircled in the pond over to the west, the nature trail that Darren was speaking to, instead of a surface material such as pea gravel or pavement, we chose to keep that on grade and natural as possible. We talked about possibly having some wood chips, non-dyed natural wood chips in areas where we might have to traverse a steep slope because the trail will be field sited to avoid clearing of any large trees. So it might shift a little bit from the proposed condition you see there, just based on tree avoidance. As Darren spoke to, the sediment erosion controls are in accordance with all applicable guidelines and will serve to protect water quality within the detention pond and adjacent wetlands during construction. And overall, the lack of proposed direct wetland impacts, the adherence to the general footprint of the existing development, and the mitigation activities proposed in the form of invasive vegetation removal, a diverse variety really of pollinator-friendly upland and wetland plants, and that replacement of the paved pathway along the pond were really designed and are anticipated to enhance the long-term functions and values of this resource compared to its present conditions. And with that, I think I will turn it back over to Mr. O'Leary, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Megan. Mr. Chairman, in general, that concludes our presentation this evening. We hope that we have covered all important aspects for you and the commissioners. We are in the process of responding to the comments, revising plans, developing the responses, and they will be delivered to Mary Rose and the city engineer next week, trying to provide as much time as possible for their review before the next meeting. And we avail ourselves to you and the commissioners for any questions that you may have for the project at this time.
Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Leary. Thanks, Ms. Fogarty, for your presentation as well. We can open it up for questions from the commissioners that you may have based on the information presented. Mr. Connors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Mary Rose, is it possible just to emphasize is there wetland flags? I didn't see any on the map. Is there actual wetland flags on this property? I couldn't see it. I just saw the upland review area marked. So those are the wetland flags?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. They're not, exact flags are not shown on this plan. They are on, if I can share. They are on figure 2.
Oh, there you go.
Go in a little bit. Which is in your meeting packet. And they are on all the drawings on the meeting packet for this area, which is mostly sheet 5. When you're reviewing the drawings, sheet 5 is the majority of this area, and sheet 6 is the bottom corner of the parking deck and the little bottom of the wetland.
And just relative to that question, I was just curious on the dog park, as far as I saw that you guys are going to be using like some sort of turf material. Can anybody speak to that and its potential to, during storm events, if it's using any sort of microplastics that can enter the wetland?
I'm not sure, Mr. O'Leary, if you have an overall plan. The dog park are proximal to the multi-family units. One is
The south one I was curious about.
Curious about the south one. Okay.
One adjacent to the parking garage.
So the parking
Keep going
garage
down.
is a little bit more.
A little more. One more. There it is.
Yeah.
I think you need to go up one sheet.
Sorry.
There it is. The dog park, it's not shown on this sheet, but it would be just to the south of where the cursor is. I don't know why it's not reflected on this sheet.
I thought it was
It's in
on
that area.
this area.
So, yes, correct.
Yeah, I had trouble. I have the maps pulled up. I just had trouble orienting that. Is that in the review area?
No, it's not within the
Okay.
review area.
Okay, then I'm
You're
not.
probably 300 to 400 feet out of the review area, I believe there.
Okay, and then my
Darren,
other
if you
question.
could if you could verify that, Darren, during the conversations.
Go ahead, Matt, with your next question.
My
The
next
dog
question
park is
was
not.
okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. My next question was for in regards to the Phragmites removal. I just wanted to know what process you guys were going to use. You guys are going to mow it back. I just know it's really hard to remove Phragmites because of their root systems and how they grow back. Are you going to be using herbicides as well? What process are you guys going to use?
Yep, that's correct. A wetland approved herbicide is our typical treatment method for Phragmites. It does not respond well to manual treatment, even if repeated over a number of years. So a wetland approved herbicide is the standard there, and that's what is proposed.
And is there mowing as well with that, or is it just strictly just the wetland approved herbicide?
We don't have an application method included at this point, but from my experience, the Phragmites is located within the water itself, so you wouldn't be able to get a mower in there. But there is a possibility to do a technique called snip and drip, where you actually cut the stalks individually and apply herbicide down into the stalks, and that's proven very effective and also limits any risk of overspray or treatment, accidental treatment of adjacent native vegetation.
Yeah, I know sometimes they use the like the amphibious vehicles as mowers for that stuff. And then just in regards to that pond, I know you mentioned that is a retention pond. Is that all that water in that pond? Well, not obviously all the water, but a lot of the water is coming from the site. Is that clear, or
Correct.
is there any sort of filtration happening to that water before it's entering that pond as is right now, or?
So, I think Darren could speak possibly to the actual utility of it. But in terms of the detention area, it's actually split. If you can see in that picture, I believe on the right side, that is the structure separating the two portions of the detention area. One of them is described in the soil report as a sort of detention moat, and there's a small dam or weir feature between that and this larger pond that you see. And it is assumed that based on the design from the 80s that the up gradient one was intended to serve as some sort of treatment or forebay, but we have no proposed modifications to that existing outfall, whether it's to add water or remove water from this outfall. It will be maintained in its current place and watershed.
Gotcha. And I'm basically dancing around the fact that I'm just curious from the perspective of, is that basically all parking lot water that's ending up in there? It's almost like, does that make sense to push all the water into the wetland area? That was basically what I was curious about. Like, I'm curious if there's any sort of filtration before all of that water is basically directed into the wetland.
Correct. Not that we are aware of. I believe we were looking to dig up some records of the original construction to see. We do know that pipe comes from the parking garage, which is going to be maintained as part of the proposed conditions. And the other thing that I will mention is just that the littoral shelf plantings that are proposed will inherently provide some level of treatment as this is intended to be, a stormwater basin in its original design. And as such, vegetation along the perimeter goes a long way in sediment and nutrient capture.
So I can add to that a little bit. And Megan, I think you're exactly right. In my field walks out there in the summer, that upper part of the basin with the island in it was virtually dry other than right at the weir wall. But there was still a beautiful permanent pool on the western side of the basin, the downstream side. So I think that upper one is a water quality basin that's not intended to have a permanent pool. It's supposed to fill up and appears to infiltrate somewhat. There is, along the northern edge of that, there's a 24-inch storm drainage pipe that comes into that upper lobe of the basin with the island in it. That pipe comes from the western side of where the age-targeted building or the existing office building is, runs over towards the parking garage. We went through all the plans in the facility to try and better understand how that drainage system connects.
Excuse me, Mr. Overton, can you show what you're talking about? Can you take control of the screen and show? Sorry, I want to follow what you're saying and I'm not able to do that. If you can bring up the visual that you had before and just talk us through what you're saying, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Let me know when you can see it.
Yep.
So this is the upper lobe of the basin, and there's an upland vegetated island in the middle of it. So there's kind of, as Megan had mentioned, a moat around here. There's a concrete weir that goes across here that separates the two portions of the basin. As part of the walking path, there's a wooden bridge that goes over the outlet where I believe there's another weir that controls the permanent pool elevation in here. So this part of the basin, even in midsummer, had a permanent pool. This part of it was majority dry, other than the area kind of where the Phragmites was. There was still some water pooling there. So just above the Phragmites, right about where my cursor is now, there's a 24-inch stormwater pipe that enters this part of the basin. That comes up to a manhole in this area and then runs west out through the age-targeted building and comes into the parking garage. So existing parking around the perimeter of the parking garage on the south and west side ties into that drainage system, as well as the parking garage. And then there's a series of manholes in the lower level of the garage. We believe there's some sort of stormwater management actually below the lower level of the parking garage before it may be a detention or water quality structure. And then it comes out and discharges into here with what we believe is a water quality part of the stormwater basin as it was designed, which then overflows into the permanent pool and then discharging to the wetland. And you can see it, as Megan mentioned, the wetland actually wraps around the east side, the flagged wetland, and then the actual pond itself has a bit of a berm around here. And we did find plans that showed there were small diameter 4-inch PVC pipes that go through this berm that actually hydraulically connect the pond to the wetlands. And then, of course, the overflow discharges to the wetlands and flows south.
Thank you. That was very helpful, Mr. Overton. Appreciate that. So, Mr. Connors, did your question get answered? Or do you have?
Yes. I mean, I'm just, obviously, it's a historical thing. It's not part of this plan. I'm just curious as to why we are moving all the parking lot water basically into the more sensitive area. That was my concern. And I just wanted to, clarity on it. If there's any sort of pre-treatment prior to that release into that area. But it seems like it's unclear, right? You said there might be some stormwater management under the garage.
So I just want to clarify, we're not modifying any of this stormwater system as it collects the water here. We are, because the pipe currently would run under the new building, we're relocating that under this portion of the building and then connecting it back into the discharge point. So we're not changing any of the stormwater management or the watershed area that's associated with this discharge pipe. It appears that over time, this has functioned very well, and we're not proposing to impact how that functions or change it in any way. The roof leaders for this building tie back to the west. because it sits kind of right along the ridge line. So the roof for the age-targeted building is going to go back to the other stormwater management basin. So we're essentially leaving this watershed here design intact, other than the relocation of that pipe to avoid the new building.
I appreciate it. And for me, it's just a historical issue. It's not with this application. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr. Connors. It's a great question because, and I appreciate Mr. Overton, your clarification, because that was going to be my other question, which was based on these other proposed buildings, what potential impact would it have? But you're saying it's net neutral based on the
Yes.
design.
Yes, so we have no increase in runoff and basically very little change in the watershed because the development of the age-targeted building is handled substantially similar as the 2 office buildings that are being taken down. No increase in runoff there, and we're maintaining the drainage system and the drainage patterns the same as they exist now.
Great. And a follow-up question for Ms. Fogarty. On the other drawing where there was the hashing, it was the drawing you had up before, Mr. Overton. Yes, this one. Can you make that a little bigger just to see the text box on the right where it says something about, yes, this one. Can you just talk about what's in that box, Ms. Fogarty, and in relation to the wetlands? I see a headline that says review area altered. So what do you mean by altered? And can you just take us through
Sure.
anything that we might have either heard or like the essential stuff? I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So the text box there is referring to all of the areas shaded in pink on this graphic, and those areas are all of the limits of development, limits of work, essentially within the 150-foot upland review area. So to say altered, it could be that's also the same as anywhere we have the upland review area disturbance or impact. So nothing new there. But to go through the things that are listed in that text box, we have the existing buildings being demolished, as you can see, again, in that red dash line, that's the limit of those within the 150-foot upland review area. The removal of the concrete, which is along the pathway, and some areas near the building as well. Utilities removal, some pretty minor tree clearing, mostly along that hillside planting area where you can see we replaced it with a really nice variety and a dense variety of native shrubs. One tree species I see to restore that area, as well as a seed mix. And then we have the building foundation excavation, amenity space and pool, utilities, curbing, concrete parking, permeable parking, which you can see is hatched in sort of that northeastern portion. And those again are just associated with the age-targeted building redevelopment. But I think it's important to mention that the hardscape, which is the amenity area itself, is pretty well limited to the existing footprint of that encroachment from the existing office park. The retaining wall was used to limit additional encroachment within the upland review area. And the natural on-grade trail we mentioned that will be field located to avoid large trees. We do have a seating area with some additional permeable pavement or pea gravel there. There is an existing, I think, 2 or 3 benches down in that area. They're pretty deteriorated, and it would go a long way to replace those. And lastly on that list is the removal of the existing concrete walkway and replacement with the pervious stabilized pea gravel walk. And again, that will function to improve the non-consumptive recreation opportunities around this feature, as well as to improve infiltration by replacing an impervious surface with a pervious one. And I know you were just talking about that one text box, but in the orange one down below, that is where we have the removal of the invasive vegetation and the restoration plantings along the littoral shelf there. So those are all called out, and there's a planting plan on the sheet as well associated with that. All really, really great native species, pollinator friendly, and designed to improve the functions and values of the detention feature.
And again, just repeat for us the net improvement in the functions and values given the proposed improvements that you've laid out. What essentially should we take away from that this is a net improvement in the functions and values? Is that right?
Sure. Yeah. So the recognized functions and values that would be improved here, I would call out sediment and shoreline stabilization by increasing the resilience of the shoreline, which is now existing mowed lawn, to a native herbaceous variety of plants, which will also improve nutrient removal as well as sediment capture, because this does serve as a stormwater basin. Sediment capture is important and will be enhanced through those native plantings. The removal of invasive vegetation, of course, and replacement with native species will improve the wildlife habitat, and overall visual aesthetics and visual quality and aesthetics, which is a recognized wetland function and value. And the replacement of the paved walkway with the stabilized pea gravel, although it's not within the wetland, that improvement, like I said, will promote infiltration, groundwater recharge. It's generally not advised to have a paved pathway around a wetland resource. And while it exists now, and it's an opportunity for recreation, we'd like to improve that in terms of infiltration and groundwater recharge.
Great. Thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. Mr. Matthew Connors.
Last question for me, just through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to touch base as far as the removal and the restoration of and these plantings. Is there any sort of long-term maintenance in the plan? If you could just speak briefly on that, and what does it look like? How often is somebody going to be out there basically checking on these plants, making sure they're successful? And to that note.
Who can take that question?
Darren, you taking that? Okay.
Megan, do we have a post-construction management plan proposed?
Not at this time, I don't believe, but we would certainly be amenable to something like that if the commission so requests.
Well,
I just want to point out,
go ahead, Darren, please.
This does show the location of that 24-inch discharge right on the edge of the Phragmites and where that pipe comes in. So there's a pipe and existing manhole that comes in here. So that location is identified in this plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from the agency?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Gradwell.
I have a couple questions. I think Mr. Overton may have explained the storm drainage system that discharges to the wetland and upland review area. And that he mentioned that they're not proposing any improvements to that storm drainage system at all, and just going to let it kind of drain to the wetland as it drains today. I believe this is a pretty big redevelopment site. I would think they would consider some sort of stormwater management improvements to the water that drains to that wetland and upland review area. And I would hope they maybe consider that, because it is a redevelopment. It is a pretty good sized project, and we don't have many opportunities to kind of improve the water quality going to a wetland or upland review area very often here. Another question in and around upland review area and erosion and sediment control measures. Just based on this plan right now, there's a lot of area that's going to be disturbed in the upland review area, say to the west of that wetland and resource. What kind of, and maybe Darren can kind of, Mr. Overton can kind of go over that erosion sediment control plan with respect to this area and our resources in and around this area in a little more detail. Is there a turbidity curtain proposed in and around the pond to kind of protect the wetland? and the water within the pond from upland soils being kind of washed in that direction because that's what the land kind of drains towards. That's another kind of question we can kind of get into. Maybe Mr. Orbit can kind of explain that a little bit further. With respect to the swimming pool, that's definitely in the upland river area as well. What type of chemicals are going to be used in that pool? Is it a saltwater pool? Is it a chlorine pool? And then how is that pool deck drained? Is it drained to the wetland and upland review area, or is it drained to some sort of drainage system that collects and retains that water before it hits the upland review area and the wetland water course system? And then kind of my last question in and around the existing pond at, Mr. Overton kind of talked about the discharge point on that south area. Has that discharge, has that embankment been inspected? And so we know the condition of that, and we can, kind of guarantee that that pond will, operate and maintain and operate, as it does today and in the future. So we don't have any problems with disturbances of that wetland if something to fail at that outfall. At that south kind of corner of that pond. So those are kind of my general, just really high level questions at this point. And maybe Mr. Overton and Ms. Fogarty could kind of explain a couple things there before a couple of commission members kind of jump in as well.
Thank you, Mr. Gradwell. Great questions.
So I can start. I did walk around this basin. We did do visual inspection of it to look at the weirs, and the inlet pipe has some vegetation blocking it. Originally, we didn't notice it until we had researched some plans and gone out there to look at it. The walking path, as Megan had mentioned, is not in great shape. The wooden bridge that comes across the weir here also would likely require a replacement. It's showing some signs of wear. I did not look at the weir underneath the bridge, but it appears that everything, as far as the function of the pond, is functioning well and as planned. There isn't much, if any, of a sediment load coming in here. It's actually surprising that this moat around here is still in good shape, other than the invasive species that are coming in there. As far as erosion and sediment control, you could see the watershed divide here. So there will be some perimeter controls. The good thing is it's a very limited watershed, so we have a small area to control, and the sequence of this will happen at different times. The foundation would go in first. There'll be perimeter controls around those. The actual walkway system will come later. And again, the plan is to just use perimeter controls, silt fence. We have not proposed the turbidity curtain in the basin because we believe we can limit the watershed areas to very small areas that can be controlled by silt fence. And with the sequencing, the normal sequencing of the construction, there'll be limited areas of disturbance as far as runoff, as far as the watersheds. They'll be very small. The embankment here that's going to be formed as part of creating the parking lot will have an erosion control blanket on it as part of the stabilization before when the seed mix goes on, and then the plantings will be placed in there. So that should establish very quickly. And basically, once the blanket is placed on there, you'll have basically a permanent erosion control measure immediately. But if there are any recommendations that the commission has, we'd be happy to try and implement them. As far as the stormwater management, like I mentioned, it appears that it's functioning well. We don't fully understand what's underneath the floor of the parking garage. Unfortunately, there just isn't good research documentation. We have not done any TV inspection of it, just visual inspection. And as far as additional stormwater management, we did think about putting a hydrodynamic separator on here. But the problem is there isn't very good access to this area. But we could make sure that this nature trail is wide enough and then a gradient where we could get equipment in here and could potentially consider a hydrodynamic separator if that's what the commission would like to see as an additional water quality measure. And a truck could access along this slope coming in off of the parking bay that's right here. We have the nature trail, could come in here and then potentially vacuum out a hydrodynamic separator if the commission would like to see us add that as a feature. But like I said, in my site visits, I was actually surprised that there really is no sediment load coming in here. I thought we'd see some sediment plume and part of this filled in, but it appears to be generally, as it had been originally created, other than the evasives, which are also raising up the bottom somewhat in the area where the Phragmites are, as they typically do. If I missed anything, any of your questions, I apologize. I'd be happy to elaborate further if I missed something.
No, Mr. Overton, you covered them pretty darn well, which is great. Appreciate the follow up there. Yeah, I definitely would appreciate you guys following up and looking into, some sort of stormwater measure, on the pipe that leaves and heads into that resource and wetland. I think the one you may have kind of overlooked, and maybe you can get into a little further, is the swimming pool and how you handle the water leak and maybe chemicals and chlorine or salt water that pool may have. Yeah, I think that's kind of the one last thing and then maybe Ranjit can jump in with a couple questions as well.
So as far as the pool, we haven't detailed that out. At this point, there's no intention for any of that pool water to discharge into the wetlands or outside of the pool area. I believe the plan would be to have deck drains and for all of that to drain internally. So all of it, whether it would be a saltwater pool or a chlorine type of pool, I think the tendency now is to have a saltwater type pool. Either way, there's still chlorine residual that's in the pool water, just probably not. If it's a saltwater based one, it's not as high of a concentration of chlorine, but all of that is anticipated to be self-contained and stay within that pool and deck area.
Cool. Okay. All right. Great. Thanks, Mr. Overton. Thanks, Ms. Fogarty.
Thanks, Mr. Gradwell. Commissioner Bahave, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can the applicant confirm if the pavement in the parking lot is going to be permeable pavement?
Mr. Overton or Mr. Leary, can you address that question?
So we proposed a row of parking spaces here to be permeable. The drive aisle and the space on the other side is standard, and then the rest of the site is standard pavement. It's the area along this portion that we propose to be permeable.
I see. Okay. For some reason, I got an impression that all the parking lots will be permeable, and my follow-up question was, if parking lot pavement is permeable, then the net storm runoff will actually decrease and not remain the same. But if that is only small area that is permeable, probably it may not have much of an impact on the storm runoff.
Okay, Mr. Bahave, is there any more questions you have?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Matthew Connors, you had your hand raised. Go ahead.
Just to through you, Mr. Chair, just to Commissioner Gradwell's point, I just wanted to touch base. When you break ground on this project, is there any? I just want to make sure that there's going to be some sort of inlet protection upland, because obviously if everything is draining into that site, and you said there's currently no sedimentation, I'm assuming you're going to be moving a lot of dirt around and breaking up parking lot for this. I was just curious how that drainage would work during construction.
So the largest earthwork activity would really be for excavation of the foundations of the new building, the amended area and pool, and then the fill slope here adjacent to the parking lot. There are no inlets in this yard area now. The stormwater line that runs through here has a couple of manholes, but currently the entire yard area behind the existing office building just sheet flows down to the pond, and the drainage system is kind of fully enclosed in a manhole type of system. We are proposing, as part of the sediment erosion control plan, anywhere on site, we do have existing catch basins to remain or new catch basins. They will have inlet protection.
Thank you.
And could I ask a follow-up question on that, Mr. Overton? I'm not, my skills are not engineering like Mr. Gradwell or Mr. Bahave or even others on the agency. Back to your point about the detention pond being pretty, I'll call it stable. I think you said that, I think that's the impression I got from what you described. in the sequencing of the construction, I guess two-part question, does the Phragmites by their very nature kind of provide some of that stability? And would you sequence the removal of those after all this construction to avoid any potential degradation of the stability of that area? Or is stability an issue that we need to be concerned about?
I can speak to the Phragmites. No, the plan for Phragmites is to let them die in place. So after the herbicide treatment, we would allow them to dry up essentially in place and die. And the purpose of that, as opposed to cutting them all down or ripping them out, is that you're always going to miss some level of root material, rhizome, that could then further reproduce. So once they die and are fully dried out, they'll essentially, decompose in place, and no impacts to the stability of that area are anticipated.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Other questions from the agency? Mayor Rose, is there anything else you'd like to add that you might be thinking about?
I'd just like to clarify through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Overton. Did you say you TV'd whatever the system is under the garage, or you had not yet?
Sorry, we did not. We just did visual inspection.
Okay. But I just need to clarify that. And the Phragmites work would be done after the building is constructed, typically when you would do all your other landscaping. Is that the plan, or are you going to do it over a series of years at time?
Megan, would you recommend that a treatment on the Phragmites be done early? I think there's a seasonality to it.
Yeah, there's the best time to do it is right at the end of the summer, before the first hard frost, and that ensures the most herbicide can be translocated down into the roots before the above ground portion of the plant dies off for the winter. So it would depend on the time of year where all of the other construction is being done. But I would say the most important factor there is the time of year that the treatment would be most effective, which is approximately late August, early September.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, what is the time frame for construction for this portion of the site? About how long would that take? Year, 2 years?
It's around the 18-month to 2-year period. This is Patrick O'Leary speaking. Ultimately, the phasing is not completely in place at this time. We are hoping to complete all the site work in unison at this time for the site, so that it's a one-time ordeal out there during the construction of the site work relative to both sides of the watershed here.
Mhm.
So I would anticipate, looking at this site, it's probably going to be possibly a spring type of construction, not this spring, but the following spring. And then the duration of site would probably be there's very limited site work here. It's primarily the building foundations, and some work in the front toward the Central Park up there in the parking area. The parking garage remains in place. And then there's a small parking area over to the south with the pervious paving. It's going to be one construction season, and that'll be finished with the site work here. So it'll be very short duration in this area. Overall, for the entire site, it'll be longer, but the remaining portions of the site do not impact this watershed. Did that capture everything you wanted, Mary Rose?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. My thought process was Phragmites will slow down any sedimentation that's coming out the end of that pipe.
Mhm.
So if it's there, obviously, even if you spray it, the root mass is going to be there. Should anything get into the system, it may act as not a fully, but a natural turbidity curtain to
Mhm.
protect that that northern portion of the pond while you're under construction, should anything release and get into the system.
I have a follow-up question for the applicants. What kind of wetland boundary signage have you contemplated for this area?
Actually, to the best of my knowledge, we have not at this point. We have the walking trail around there, which provides fairly good definition in and by itself. And then, as you've mentioned, I think it would need to be supplemented with some signing relative to maintaining, keeping people on the walking path, taking care of trash, things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we would recommend, is that there be relevant signage in the areas that may have public traffic to educate the public as to the resource and making sure that it was protected. So we have some placards that we generally recommend with these types of applications that we can, provide instruction and guidance on. But Mary Rose, I don't know if you want to add to that or just clarify what I just mentioned.
Through you, I can share with you placards that other sites have put up that are not like everybody stay on the trail so much as look at this resource. Here's the kinds of things you'll see in this resource. Ms. Fogarty mentioned pollinator plantings. Milford's now on the pollinator pathway. You could get some pollinator pathway signs, things like that, that would lead people to not destroy the environment as much as enjoy it.
It's a very good suggestion. Thank you very much. And we will incorporate that.
Yeah, there's actually a resource, and Melrose has a couple resources, but I'm just looking at one of my pictures from the wetlands conference we went to Saturday. And there's a really intentional sign that says, let it grow, do not mow, and then it educates the public about the benefits, right? Cleans water, stabilizes the bank, filters pollutants. This may not be the right fit, but it's along those lines.
Understood.
Okay. Mr. Field, do you have any questions, or Mr. Bedeker?
Everyone has basically beat me to the punch. They all had good questions. I mean, the only thing, it's just an idea, but it's just feedback from the other commissioners is if they're worried about around the pond, just put a split rail fence up.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I don't have concerns necessarily that would lead me to suggest there should be a rail fence. It's more, my sort of underlying concern is more, are there any factors during the construction that would destabilize it? But it sounds like the testimony is to the contrary, that that's all being concerned or being taken care of, from what I can tell.
Mr. Commissioner, yeah, I agree. It's a walking path. They're doing a good job upgrading everything that's there. And most of the people who are going to be on that walking path, I don't think anyone's really going to be going in the water to do anything. And if they do, good luck getting them out. So I think common sense is going to keep people out of it.
How about flooding? We haven't talked about flooding in this area, like excessive climate change. Would there be any potential impacts that we need to consider? And I'm asking the applicant, have you thought about in this specific area? There's a lot going on here. It seems like you've got all of the aspects covered, but have you contemplated sort of extreme climate change, like, heavy rains?
So we do, as part of our due diligence, look at the FEMA mapping, and anytime you have a water feature like this, that's connected to a larger watershed that goes off site, We want to think about resiliency and avoiding flooding in the buildings or any, critical resources. I think all the amenities that we're proposing around the pond, if this whole area were to flood, there really wouldn't be much, if any, impact to it. So I think what we've designed is pretty resilient. I forgot to mention, but this watershed extends up to the base of the slope up around Wheeler's Farm Road in this wooded area here. So there isn't much upstream watershed to this, and the wetland is extremely flat through this area. But I forgot to mention there is a catch basin on Wheeler's Farm Road and a pair of catch basins at the entrance drive with a discharge over in this area that discharges into the wooded area that then leads into the upper part. So that's the upper part of the watershed. It really starts at that stormwater discharge and then drains through this wooded wetland area toward the pond. So I forgot about that, and I apologize, but I did want to mention that. This is another part of the system that's essentially remaining unchanged, other than the town engineer has asked, because there's no formal drainage easement there for us to provide a drainage easement. But there is very limited watershed through here, where even extreme rainfall events could cause flooding problems, other than within the pond itself, I believe.
Okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And that does lead to another question that Mr. Jim Connors would normally ask. He's probably thinking about it. Snow shelves. Are there any intentional snow shelves in the area, like in parking area 3, where those impervious parking spots are going to be designed? Are you planning on putting any snow shelves in that area? Doesn't seem like it, but we just always typically look at those things.
So the snow shelf would likely be at the end here. We expect they're going to push the snow down towards this end of the parking area. It's just kind of logical that you push it that way. And then there is another kind of grass island here. And in pushing it out of the parking lot, they would have to clear the walkway along here as well. There is somewhat of a flat shelf. It's probably only 4 feet along the edge here to accommodate the lighting that's proposed before the vegetated slope. So there is some ability to store along the very top of the slope there. But we don't want them pushing the snow too much into the vegetation there. It's probably a pretty limited area.
Great. Mr. Connors, you're on mute. If you want to say something, you're on mute. Jim, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Come on, Jim.
There you go.
Okay. I said, it shows vegetation at the end of the area where you want to push the snow. And those plants, whatever they are not going to like snow being piled on them.
Yeah, we would recommend that you don't create a snow shelf there, is kind of what I'm suggesting. And do you agree?
You got to put it somewhere, and that's probably the only logical place because they got plantings all along it. And that's the way you would plow the snow. You would push it there.
Yeah, to the end, but not like where number 4 is. Push it up the other way, right?
No, you push it to looking at the picture to the right of 3. You know, straight off the park from the building down off the parking lot, and there's where your hand is. That's the shrubbery or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't plant it there.
Yes, we might want to relocate those. We'll rethink that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we would appreciate that in the proximity of the wetlands. Thank you. Okay, so we've obviously covered a lot of territory tonight. If there's any more questions, we could take them now, but if not, the agency has the option to, this evening we can, well, we're not going to make a decision because we are waiting on the response to the engineering and Mary Rose's review. So it would be my suggestion that we take no action until the next meeting. Mary Rose did remind me that if for some reason we don't make a decision on this at the next meeting on December 3rd, we will need to ask the applicant to extend because our 65-day window will close the week after.
And we'll be happy to accommodate that, Mr. Chairman. And on the interim between now and the next meeting, we'll take a very, very serious look at all the comments. I believe we can accommodate some additional stormwater management techniques for the line coming out of the garage. We'll take a very hard review of all the soil erosion control measures and potentially fortify them where commissioners have suggested, understanding the importance of protecting the wetlands there. Reach out to your agent to get some of the signing information that you had suggested for encircling the walking path and wetland area, as well as changing the shrubs up there for the snow removal to make
Right.
sure they're not in the way.
I have another question on snow removal, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Connors.
Looking at the overall plan, the other apartment buildings, are those little buildings at the end garages all around the perimeter of the roadway?
Through the chair, yes, they are, sir.
Where are you going to put the snow there?
Snow is going to be pushed beyond the garages, and we have more than adequate area if you look behind the garages to store snow.
It's
throughout
never
the
going to be
perimeter of
pushed
the site.
behind the garage.
Not behind the garage, but if you look at the surface parking between the garages, there's more than adequate area there to get the snow off the paved areas and out into the edge of the wood lines there.
Does you enter the garages from the brown area or the street area?
From the street area.
Okay.
Mhm.
It'll be a complicated snow plowing project.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Leary. Appreciate your attentive team. Appreciate all the questions, or sorry, the answers and responses you've given, and your willingness to consider all of the concerns that we've addressed. Thank you.
Thank you for your time this evening. We look forward to working with you on this very exciting project. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you forward me your deck from this evening so that I can add that to the documents in case the commissioners want to review it before the next meeting?
Of course, it'll arrive in your inbox shortly.
Thank you, dear.
And just before you leave, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. O'Leary, if you could just add to that list the long-term maintenance.
Oh, yes.
Appreciate it.
I apologize, I missed that, but that will
All good.
absolutely be added. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for bringing the experts. We appreciate you. Okay, hearing no other questions on this matter, we're going to move on to the next agenda item on the meeting.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, what do we got next?
Through you. We inadvertently left new business on there. There is no new business.
Great. Thank you, Maris. Consideration of the minutes. Do we have a motion to accept those as presented?
I'll make it.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second it, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Field, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Lisa, roll call vote, please.
Dan Bedecker,
Aye.
Renji Bahav,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matthew Connors,
Abstain.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brenda Magnan.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Mary Rose, staff report.
All right. We attended the Cacuic meeting last Saturday. Chairman Magnan, Commissioners Bahav, Matt Connors, and Ray Gradwell were with us, as well as members of the Conservation Commission. Keynote speakers talked about climate change, which is, I'm glad we rolled that into the discussion this evening, on its impacts on vegetation and sea level rise. And there's also a working group on riparian buffers where they're considering new legislation. It's Representative Mary Mashinsky is heading or leading the working group. They're considering legislation to require a size. They haven't decided on the width of a required no variance buffer along water courses and waterways. If you're interested in that, in my notes, I left some links to the Rivers Alliance page, which is kind of keeping a line on this. There is a connection to the working group page on the Connecticut General Assembly website. There's a YouTube channel where you can see the other meetings, or you can attend and participate through Zoom or live at the Legislative Office Building at the next meeting. The next meeting is in the afternoon on December 3rd. I'm sorry, we've been a little bit busy in the office. I have not updated my note on the commissioner's page. I will do that for you. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no questions, we'll move on to Chair's report. Thanks, Mayor Rose, for all the work you've done in preparation for tonight's application with the team, with the engineer, with the applicant team. Thanks, everybody, for your excellent deliberations. Thanks for everyone's participation in the CACUWAC that went. Ray, Mojave, and Matt, and Mayor Rose. Let's see, next meeting will be December 3rd, right here on Zoom. Have a great Thanksgiving. Let the office know if you're unable to attend the meeting. Do you have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Hi.
roll call.
Roll call.
Aye.
Always do that. I always do that.
Come on, Brandon.
You know me, Jim.
Dan Bedecker,
Ready to go.
Dan, Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors, Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Hi.
Brenda Magnan.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you,
Everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Have a
Thanksgiving.
good night.
Happy
Happy
Have a nice
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Likewise.